So Russian propagandists are known for saying some pretty nutty things. I mean, this is the point of being a propagandist. After all, they say the state lines and they say things for a reason. Now, with that say things in a reason bit in mind, I want to watch this because this is one of the nuttiest things that I've ever heard Russian state media propagandists say. Okay, let's get into this. You're going to see it with your own eyes, what I'm seeing. So they say it's time to tell Europeans, Belgium, Euroclear, openly and publicly that, look, later, when Russia starts taking reparations from Ukraine for the damage it caused. Let's stop there. You read this correctly. They're saying when Russia starts taking reparations from Ukraine, not that Ukraine is going to get reparations from Russia for invading their sovereign border and doing, well, I don't even know how much. So about a year ago, it was already north of $500 billion worth of damage in Ukraine. And it's probably moving toward at least $750 billion worth of damage in Ukraine. But it's not that they're saying when Russia does has to pay reparations to Ukraine. It's saying when Russia starts taking reparations from Ukraine for the damage it caused. Like, this is what they're saying on Russian state media. Now, what we know about Russian state media are a couple of things. One, the older you are in Russia, the more inclined you are to watch Russian state media, Solyov Live, and things like that. Two, the least informed are those that sign up for the military and, like, without having to think about it, or they don't really process and think through, this might kill me. So they're doing this for a reason. Okay, when Russia starts taking reparations from Ukraine for the damage it caused, the amount seized from Russian assets will be added to those reparations. Well, what's he talking about? The amount seized from Russian assets. It's not been seized yet, but we see this. Britain, France, Germany are moving closer to giving Russian assets to Ukraine. Now, I've been opposed to this because of the financial system, but I understand why they're going to do it. I think a happy splitting of the difference has been when they would do things like use the frozen Russian assets as like the interest from those assets and give that to, okay, that seems to have been a fair splitting of the difference. In a statement published by the German government, the E3, again, that's Britain, France, and Germany, leaders said that they would do this in cooperation with the United States. The U.S. has very little compared to what Europe has of the Russian frozen assets, but they want the U.S. on board just like the U.S. wants Europe on board if they're going to do massive tariffs to China and India and so on and so forth. They said this, quote, "We are ready to progress toward using, in a coordinated way, the value of the immobilized Russian sovereign assets to support Ukraine's armed forces and thus bring Russia to the negotiating table." Read the statement by Britain's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, France's President, Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Okay, so that's what they're saying. Now, I mean, will it go anywhere? I don't know, but this is what they're talking about, and that's what's got their goat. So using these Russian assets, now, if they do use these frozen Russian assets, what's going to happen, Putin already told us what he's going to do. He's going to seize European or other Western countries that are still doing business in Russia. Most of them have gotten out. There are a handful that continue to do business. They're going to be punished because if the West takes their Russian assets, Putin's going to punish the ones that stayed behind in Russia and take their assets to even the score. Okay, back to our friendly propagandists. Again, the amount seized from Russian assets will be added to those reparations. Okay, he goes on. The more you seize, the more reparations we'll claim from Ukraine later. So if you go ahead and do it, if you do this, we're going to do this to you and take more later. And then he goes on with some more bluster. Let them calculate their risks and wonder where we'll get the money from. And it's going to, and again, Putin has already said that we're going to seize Western countries, we'll nationalize them or whatever in order to get that back. Okay, and it's such a fascinating thing because the assets are held by maybe a handful of oligarchs, right? And so it's not really coming from the state, from the Russian state, but it would go from the oligarchs and it would be seized by the West, and then the national wealth that's not related to the state in the state or the various states in the West would then be seized from the companies back to the state that is to Russia. So Russia didn't lose anything, but it would gain something. So I think Putin would like to do that. Okay, in the end, we'll take property, opera and ballet theater in Odessa or whatever. And he's asked, why would we pay for what's already ours? Isn't that ominous? They already think that the opera house in Odessa is already theirs. This is the mentality that they have about what Ukrainian is an artificial construct. They're really Russians who are just traitors Ukrainians are really Russians who are traitors to Russia, who need to be stopped. They either need to be converted or destroyed and brought back into the fold. Okay, why would we pay for what's already ours? Well, it's not ours yet. And what about reparations? What reparations could Ukraine pay? Belgium will pay. France will pay too. Netherlands too. Remember, though, it's these companies from these nations that will be bearing the cost for this, and not the nation state itself. But okay, we'll go after Belgium, France. We know perfectly well how this will end. We'll pursue it in a military tribunal. Yeah, okay. In a military tribunal. So you're saying that you're going to be the victor and then you're going to set up a military tribunal in order to make these other Western nations pay? I mean, they're in like la la land here. And they even joke, yes, in The Hague. In The Hague, what are you possibly talking about in The Hague? The Hague is where Putin is a wanted war criminal. So this doesn't even make any sense. Okay, so in The Hague and in Donetsk. Okay, that's how they end this. This is just some crazy stuff. I mean, just absolutely ludicrous. But they say this like it's meaningful, or I mean, they could be. If they were talking gibberish, it would make more sense than what they're actually saying. Now, a little bit more. While that's going on, I saw this article just for the sake of contrast. I want to show this. Okay, in Russia, Alexander Fenev, former Minister of Energy for the Perm region, was caught systematically shoplifting groceries, because nothing says success like having to systematically shoplift groceries because like the economies are in ruins. He would make an order online, go to the store, put groceries from the shelves into his bag, and then pay only for the online order at checkout. So again, the Russian economy is jacked up every 3 or 4 days. And, you know, I keep building this back up. I have to do another video showing the issues within the economy because I separate that out of regular videos. So, yeah, that's where we are. Last little bit, at least dogs, like when they do something wrong, like eat your lunch, they know that they're wrong, right? Here's a golden retriever. Look, I didn't need a lecture. I knew it was your lunch. We both know that you left it unsupervised. I would say that you learned a valuable lesson today. Okay, it's a joke, haha, but even dogs know like that they did something wrong when they do something wrong. And yet where we are, I mean, they just don't seem to even understand that they're like in la la land. All right. Again, the craziest thing that I've seen in Russian propaganda, and I've seen some crazy things in Russian propaganda. Tell me what you thought about this video. Put that in the comments below. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.